So we decided that I will speak alone in order to save time. I'm going to speak on concerns of Muslim youth in Latvia. In previous section, our colleague from Lithuania already explained the history of Muslims in Lithuania that began in 14th century. I would like to remind that Baltic states for a long time was not so united like today, and for quite long history, Lithuania was culturally and politically linked to Poland, and Latvia and Estonia formed a country called Livonia. And so in Latvia, first Muslims arrived only in 19th century. At that time, Latvia was the most avant-garde industrialized region in all Russian Empire. So Riga became a very highly industrial city. And for this reason, Lithuanians and the first Muslims arrived in Latvia from Lithuania. And the first official community of Muslims in Latvia was established only in the first years of the 20th century, while the cemetery existed already some 30 years before this first official establishment. Today, the Muslim community in Latvia is quite small, only about 0.4% of population, for various reasons. We have no historical link to any particular non-European region, and after the Second World War II, Latvia became politically and culturally isolated. Today, Latvia is too weak to attract foreigners and too far from Muslim countries, and of course the most decisive factor is that we have lower GDP per capita and provide less social capital. Even after refugee crisis, there's those refugees who received permission of stay in Latvia, they moved immediately to Germany, immediately. Latvian Muslim community geographically are located in the largest cities of Latvia, Riga, Daugavpils, Liepāja, and Ventspils. In this sense, Muslims in Latvia are highly located in only industrial cities. And today, it's very difficult to know exact number of Muslim community in Latvia, because after the re-establishment of Republic of Latvia, in census we have no questions on religious belonging. The last census we had with this question was in 1989, and at that time about 12,000 people of Muslim background lived in Latvia. For example, in the next census we will have in future, there will now be a question on ethnicity as well. So for sociologists that would be very difficult to have some founded representative national data in future, even in regard to numbers. In regard to ethnicity, a Latvian Muslim community is formed by diverse ethnicities. Mainly they are Tatars, Azerbaijani, Chechens, Tajiks, Uzbeks, Kazakhs, Algerians, Arabs, Afghans, Iranians, Iraqians, and Pakistani. We observed the division between Muslims in Latvia. There are three groups. One is formed by Tatars. We call them autochthonous Muslims in Latvia. The second group are Soviet Muslims who arrived after 1945 in Latvia, mainly from Azerbaijan, Chechnya, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. And newly coming immigrant Muslims, mainly as students, Algerians, Afghans, Iranians, Iraqians, and Pakistani people. And Since Tatars are not reading Quran in Arabic, these newcomers to Latvia pretend that they do practice the real Orthodox Islam, and they stress that there should be no Islamic and national cultural centers. These are different things, and Islam should be clean of this so-called impurity. And this is the main conflict between Tatars community and this newly established Latvian Muslim community, who is governed now by converts, Latvian and Russian converts. So the demographic profile of Muslim population is younger than the generation Latvian population. And the main center is Latvian Islamic Cultural Center, located in the very center of the Riga. But in reality, that's just an apartment in Soviet era built house where is located so-called Riga, Mosque of Riga, but in reality there we have no any mosque in Riga. We conducted fieldwork in a Muslim community and got 36 qualitative in-depth interviews. That would be a very interesting story, how to get access to Muslim youth. You can ask me, I will tell you some interesting stories during the dinner. And we did not got permission to take photos. We did only photos outside of community where some activities were held. And when analyzing data, of course, like all sociologists, we transcribed and anonymized data and used an vivo program to code these interviews. In regard to ethnicities of respondents, we had 5 Russians, 4 Pakistani, 5 Uzbek, 4 Kazakh, Azerbaijan, and 1 Latvian convert. In regard to the gender, our interviews was collected mainly from males, 26 males, and 10 females. And when we speak about the age, mainly these were respondents from 16 to younger generation. So, what are the factors determining the political participation in Latvia? First, of course, that would be a question of access to information. Secondly, their understanding of democracy, their capacity to identify problems, their attitude to elections, their attitude towards involvement in politics, and motivation and capacity to take part in political life. When we speak about access to information, the respondents have up-to-date information on a regular basis, and all of them mentioned that internet is the main sources where they are getting information. However, reading was recognized as the best means of gathering information. And in addition to their native language, respondents mentioned Russian and English. And of course, lack of Latvian language skills is an obstacle for recently arrived Muslim youth to obtain information. And the main conclusion of all respondents was that they could not fully trust information provided by the media, and particularly in Latvia, because the media sphere is very contradictory. We have, of course, our Latvian national media, and in the same time, in Latvia, you have a free access to all Putin channels and radio transmissions, etc. So there are always double information on the same event. How do our Muslim young people in Latvia understand democracy? Firstly, democracy is understood like a decentralized power, power of people, equal rights, voting rights, freedom of expression, plurality of opinions, and security. Security which was particularly appreciated by young Muslims who arrived from Central Asia. What are their capacity to identify problems? When we asked this question, they immediately referred to religion and pointed out that, I quote, God is the only one who doesn't have problems. And they underlined that the number of problems was increasing worldwide, and there is a chaos both in Muslim and non-Muslim countries. That's a general attitude of our respondents. What are the most important concerns of Muslims in Latvia? To our surprise, they firstly spoke about ecological problems. Then Muslim youth mentioned social problems. Firstly, alcoholism, individualism, business evaluated higher than family, demography which is in Latvia is really a very hot problem, corruption, the increasing gap between rich and poor. And only in the third place they mentioned their concern about religion and stressed that religion and politics should be completely separate areas. And finally, all Muslims in Latvia noticed the ethnic relations, particular ethnic relations in Latvia, this division according to opinions about the history of Latvia. Was Latvia occupied by Soviet Union, or we had a socialist revolution in 1940? That's the main point of discussion. And of course, granting of citizenship and the language to be used in public institutions. In regard to relations between religions and politics, the majority of respondents spoke that religion and politics are completely separate areas, and mentioned that changes should take place in many Muslim countries. And only one respondent regretted that religious leaders do not influence politics in all countries. When we ask about attitudes towards elections, young people strongly divided in relationship to the voting age, and one part considered that 16 years would be all right, but other considered that they can formulate their thoughts at 24. In regard to attitude of involvement in politics, none of the respondents wanted to engage in politics. They noticed even that political parties make use of young people. And like a motivation to take part in political life, Muslim youth in Latvia is not very motivated to take part in social and political activities. And the motivation behind and the intensity of young people's activity is individual, and therefore it differs. One of our respondents explained that he is a member of a youth organization of a political party because it pays for studies abroad. And of course, their capacity to participate is rooted in family and school, and of course, the situation in their home country. So, to sum up, the factors determining the participation in Latvia are the factor limiting the activity of Muslim young Muslims is not their religion, but language proficiency, the issue of citizenship, negative information about Muslims in media, lack of information about the possibilities of participation, and objective of their stay in Latvia. Thank you for your attention.